podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Shall we have a tiny musical interlude before we start, or shall we just get right into it? COVID war was trending because of a CNN special in which various doctors were interviewed by Dr. Sanjeev Gupta. And Dr. Birx was very reflective on her role in covering up the extent of the crisis, or her role in legitimizing the Trump administration's approach. And when I say very reflective, I'm referencing Dr. Gupta's words, but I just think she has some degree of awareness of the harm she has helped inflict on the American people. Doesn't mean to say she's completely reflective, just that she perhaps understands that consequences await her and that some reputational laundering is in order. So we can have a little look at the quotes from Dr. Birx. Let's have a look what she told Dr. Gupta on CNN. She said of her time in the White House, "I was marginalized every day," and also told Dr. Gupta that all the deaths over the first 100,000 could have been mitigated or prevented, which was apparently a gut punch. I've been arguing that for a while. There's so much evidence to highlight the malevolent neglect of the Trump administration and the outright sabotage that they conducted against the American people with regards to a pandemic response at a public health level and an economic level, because the economy is also tied to public health. So I personally am not that impressed with Dr. Birx, but at the same time, I will celebrate the small spark left alive in her conscience that is helping her speak out about it now, perhaps in the hope of reducing the percentage of Americans who are still announcing their intention of not getting a vaccine. I know that Trump's been asking for more credit to be given to him for vaccine development. I mean, the Pfizer vaccine was developed in Germany, paid for by the German government, and the scientists were Turkish immigrants to Germany. The AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine was developed in England. Which one was developed in America? Was it the Moderna vaccine, and they made sure they didn't take funds from the Trump administration in order to try and reduce the amount of association they had with a actively malevolent, manslaughter-inducing regime? I mean, Trump has been credibly accused of pandemicide, that is to say, inflicting a soft genocide on the American population by virtue of not only inaction, but undermining important public health messages. So let's see if I can find any more quotes from Dr. Birx. Dr. Fauci told Dr. Gupta that this is a war. So if you're going to fight a war, you better start shooting at the enemy instead of each other. Militarized terminology. I know Trump hoped to benefit from that at one point, where he proclaimed that there was a war on COVID and was having all of these daily briefings. But remember when those daily briefings stopped? It stopped, or those briefings stopped when Trump realized he was making an idiot out of himself, because his suggestion that Americans be injected with disinfectant to clean out the lungs, showing his basic lack of biological understanding that disinfectant is not compatible internally with human life. We're composed of a multitude of bacteria in our bodies, as well as our own cells, and you die if you ingest disinfectant in any way, shape, or form. It's not possible to extrapolate from the fact that you can kill bacteria and viruses on surfaces by wiping them down with disinfectant. At this point, I've also found another quote from March last year, in which a CBN host asked Dr. Birx, "How would you describe the job President Trump is doing?" And Dr. Birx said, "He's been so attentive to the scientific literature and the details and the data. And I think his ability to analyze and integrate data that comes out of his long history in business is a real benefit during these discussions about medical issues. So yes, that was Dr. Birx's extreme gaslighting of the American public to try and pretend that Donald Trump was genuinely interested in learning about the disease. Everything that he knew and understood about the disease, he disclosed to Bob Woodward in February of 2020, but didn't disclose that information. Sweeties, what did Mummy say about making loud noises while I'm broadcasting? Please refrain. They're squeaking. Brian's here. Hello, Brian. Do you want to hop on? Brenda's here saying hi from Evansville, and Christopher Lucas is here too. Hello, Christopher. What can I do? I can send you an invitation, Brian, if you're free, and if you're not free, also fine. But a reckoning has to be paid in America, and it's to be hoped that reckoning will help reduce the influence level and the domestic terror threat from the far right, all of whom tend to idolize Trump and misrepresent his role in the pandemicide of at least 400,000 Americans. I mean, Dr. Birx is giving her opinion that all the deaths could have been mitigated against or prevented after the first 100,000. I think America could have had a similar approach to South Korea, who used their scientific experience, their scientific excellence to respond sensibly to a pandemic, and they had only 2,000 deaths. Let's check what the population of South Korea is actually. South Korea population of 51 million. I saw somebody do a useful thing with the maths with relation to something, COVID, where they showed the deaths and the population, and then how many times you would have to increase the American population size to get a proportionate death rate, just to really make explicit for people in mathematical terms that the brain can process as to how much disproportionately higher deaths have been in countries where leadership was poor, such as Trump in the US, British Trump, Boris Johnson in the UK, and Brazilian Trump, Bolsonaro in Brazil. So Brazil, okay, so if we say deaths per million in South Korea, oh, whoops, I have to say COVID. 9. Okay. Oh, so as of in November last year, deaths per million people, South Korea 9, US 697 deaths per million people. Sweden also quite high, 588 deaths per million. New Zealand 5, and Taiwan 0.29. And Taiwan is on the border of China. Obviously, China lays claim to Taiwan. The geographical proximity is very high, and they had 0.59 deaths per million relative to America, 697. So yes, Bernadette is using the term soft genocide. Yes, I previously tried to use the term democide, but people aren't very familiar with that. It was a term coined to represent deaths attributable to government action and inaction outside of a military conflict, such as, starving people, withholding appropriate advice during a pandemic would qualify as well. Keith has just subscribed. Thank you, Keith. I'm hoping when we move to America one day, I might get access to a study room where I can close the door and Pumpkins, perhaps close the door to your room. In fact, I'm going to ask you to do that, definitely. Not a suggestion. Sweetie, up you get, close the door, darling. I'm waiting and I'm watching. I'm looking. Darling, close the door. Thank you. Got to move the cushion out of the way. That's it. All right. Have we got anybody else? Oh, I got a nice view award from Brenda. Thanks, Brenda. And hello from Let It Be from Reno. Oh, what state is Reno in? I remember that state featuring in a movie called The Women, in which people go to Reno to get a divorce. Brian's just on a break while at work. How's it going, Brian? It's always good to see you. I know in right-wing circles, Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, gets a lot of credit from conservatives for ignoring suggestions from scientists and doctors to have faster, sharper lockdowns, etc. And he is celebrated as a model of resistance to public health strategies recommended by experts, and they laud his success. Now, some people have pointed out that.
I need to know that.
Oh, could you get one from the freezer, darling? Oh no, she's like, okay. I've got it. My daughter's hot herself. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to get